What's up, everybody? My name is Ron Amos, and welcome back to Less Pressure Podcast. First and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for all of the great feedback that I got on season 1 and starting off season 2. We're kind of going to reset a little bit and shift the focus away from me, and every episode going forward will be more so focused on a special guest that I'll have. So without further ado, I want to introduce my first guest of season 2, Miss Karen. How do you say your last name? I don't want to say it.
You can say Arreola, Arreola, whichever.
Arreola.
The R's.
Because I say Arreola, but I'm like, is that how you say it? But
That's how it's been said my whole life. It's okay.
Arreola.
Arreola. But really, if we go there, it should be Karen and not Karen.
Karen. Arreola.
Yeah. You said
Karen. Wait, Karen.
Karen.
Karen Arreola.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I am multilingual, if you didn't know that. But I am, fluent in Spanish. Not really. But me and you, we've known each other for, I think I want to say 5 years now.
About? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been about 5 years. And before we jump into any conversation, I kind of want to talk about how we kind of met each other and our first impressions of each other. So I'll go first because I kind of feel like I walked into your world a little bit. So we met 2018. I want to say it was maybe June or something like that.
Summer.
We were both, we danced in the same dance company, but you were obviously already a member of the dance company. I was an auditioner at the dance company. And I remember you being at the audition and you were just like a really, really like nice, patient, sweet girl. That was the first thing that I recognized about you. And then I guess you can go ahead and say
you had this prepared. You had this prepared.
I did.
It's not fair. Oh, but I've told you this before. Is I think I was not captivated, right? Like I don't want to like flatter you too hard.
Yeah, I'm definitely flattered already. Don't even worry about
it. You felt safe for sure. And I can't say that I attached that feeling to a lot of men or male-presenting folks, right? So you felt safe. And then you joined the conversation very, like, seamlessly and kind of agreed with me. So instantly I was like, that's my guy.
That's what I was also going to say about you and Christian because being just, well, overall I want to say that the energy like in that room always felt like really good and positive. Everyone felt like family. But I would also agree and say that you and Christian always felt safe around, and that's why I feel like I bonded with you guys so much over the years, just because of that safety I've always felt with you two, and that's why I call you my parents because I feel like if I die or something, or if something happened, like you'll take care of me. Like I've always appreciated it. So everything that I went through earlier on in the year, like the present that you guys have given me, it meant so much to me. Like I always tell people like I owe them my life because I feel like you did so much for me, and I kind of want to pay you back in some kind of way. I want to do this big gesture for both of you because you really like helped me out a lot, and it just meant a lot to me to have both of you there. Yeah. So yeah, you feel safe to me. This is a safe space. I appreciate you. Yeah, that's emotional already.
Already.
Yeah, but the reason why the reason why I chose you as my first guest is because I feel like there's a lot to you, and I feel like you have a lot to say, and I kind of wanted to give you the platform to speak. And you're an activist.
Yeah.
You care about a lot of people, a lot of causes, and a lot of different things. So if you don't mind, could you also just give maybe a summary of who you are if someone was to like meet you?
Yeah.
Like, what would you say? Who would you say you are?
Well, it was a huge compliment to me that you invited me as your first guest, outside of family and your like close circle. And also I want to say that very often, especially in my life, I haven't been asked to voice. I've been wanting to voice myself. My intention was like, wanted to speak. No one really asked me to speak. Like kind of putting myself in a room. So I appreciate that. It means a lot. I'm thinking that nobody wants to hear what I say, but maybe they do. Yes, imperfect activist. I integrated into most of what I do. So whether it's my business or my teaching or my art, in family and conversations, I try to just weave that into most of what I do, be an ally for those communities. Also, based on experience, I was born in Mexico, and we immigrated here when I was very, very young, and I got to experience several things that a child really should not have experienced at the time, right? And with that came just this fire to want justice for myself, and
I like that word, fire.
Oh.
A fire for justice. I like that word.
And then as I learned more, I started realizing all the parallels with like my community and the Black community and other groups of people that you're like, can I cuss on here?
Of course, I cuss all the time.
Okay. You're like, shit, like this world sucks.
Yeah.
And other communities that were like, we're so tied together based on these things. We just may not see it. Yeah, so my activism at one point was a little more centered towards like workers' rights, immigrants' rights. And then
How old were you when you started like doing this kind of stuff?
my first protest was, I think I was like 8, but not me
You
alone.
were 8 years old?
Yeah. My parents took me with them. And let me note, they're not politically active whatsoever anymore.
Okay.
So that
That's
was
what
like,
I was going to ask. I was like, are you all like this?
absolutely not.
Okay.
So I grew up in Carpentersville for most of my life, and at the time, they wanted to make some sort of initiative, I think, or I can't say that it's a law, but the primary language to be English, even though really there is no primary language in the U.S. There's a multitude, and that would mean that all documents and all proceedings would be held in English, without exception. And so that was going to affect us pretty badly because my parents weren't fluent in English. So they decided to show up and they took little Karen. Little did they know that was going to shape the rest of, my drive to want to do something. It was scary. I will say that.
Scary.
Your first protest is always, it's empowering, but it's also a culture shock.
Yeah. And do you know that you took your son to his first protest as well?
Oh.
You did. That was the first time I had ever like walked the street with a sign. And I'm happy that I went with you because I don't know, like I knew I had to, like I wanted to do something. Like I knew I had to, but like no one else that I knew was interested in the right reasons. Either people were like wanting to go because it's something to do, or like let's get together and like it seemed like a social event. And then the people that I knew that were Black that I talked to it about. And if you don't know, I'm talking about like the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests when George Floyd was killed. But yeah, any like Black person that I had talked to about, they were obviously with the whole situation, but they didn't want to go. They just didn't want to be a part of that. Just the specific people that I spoke to about it. But me, I definitely felt like I needed to be there because seeing stuff like that all the time, it kind of like triggers you a little bit. And then this one happened, and we're all stuck in the house at this point, and you're sitting with it and you're watching it, and the whole video is online, and you watch it and you feel like this guy is related to you. You feel like it's your brother, it's your uncle, your dad, it could be you. And it was so much rage. And I remember at that time, like every little piece of a microaggression that I've ever felt came out during those moments. And it was like I felt everything. Yeah. And I was just so happy to like be able to go there because while we pulled up to like the area where everyone was getting out and everything, I felt like this sense of community with everyone kind of uniting. And that's something that I had never felt before, especially when it comes to something like racism, because I feel like it's such a touchy topic and people don't really want to discuss it or talk about it because there's so many different opinions about it. And is it racist, or is this racism, or are you supposed to feel this like way about that? But that was the first time where I saw like a wide range of people come together over, I would like to say, me in a way. And it felt good.
Yeah.
So I appreciate
Oh
you
my God.
for being there for that, because that was a big moment for me.
I think I knew that, but I did not make the connection.
You didn't feel it. You didn't like fully understand it.
Yeah,
At the time. Yeah.
that we're the same, basically.
Yeah.
And yes, there's so much at stake as a black man to show up to these things. So you're not at fault for feeling that way whatsoever. It's the natural sentiment. Even for the Latino Hispanic community, like, yeah, we avoid that because it's dangerous, especially if you're undocumented.
Yeah.
You don't put yourself in those scenarios because you could, you know, lots of things could happen. Lots of history we have there where students have been either kidnapped or killed, all this sort of stuff, yeah. So we're not used to making that type of action whatsoever because we fear our government. And I think once we prefaced we asked you if you wanted to go.
Yeah.
I think we were on a FaceTime call with you,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, I don't know, I have therapy. And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, dang, I can't pull him away from his session, but I do want him to go, but it's a lot. So we just talked it through. And I could sense that fear of like, we don't know what's going to happen. That's really the way it is at every protest. You don't know when something's going to go wrong. So I was fully prepared, and that was my first time out in a while. If anything, my parents were really upset with me because I'd broken quarantine. So my mom just called me while we were out, and she's like, where are you? I was like, I'm at a protest.
Yeah.
And she was pretty upset. But she wasn't upset about, I think she was more upset about me being active again in the world.
Yeah. But I understand that from her, though, because, like, you're her daughter, and, like, for you to be such a fighter, like, it's scary to be a fighter. It's kind of like a risk, but it's kind of worth taking. But at the same time, there is some risk there. So she is kind of protective of you in that way.
Yeah. I guess. No, but there's some baggage there, really. It's just more of a, like I said, the cultural element of being politically active is from the age of 10, I think there was always these things that kept coming up, and she'd quote me as like, I want to save the world. And like, yeah, she would say, yeah, at your age, I wanted to save the world too, or change the world. And like, it was a phase, right?
Yeah.
Mom, it wasn't a phase.
Not a phase. Not a phase.
No. And even if it were, I think that's why I prefaced it as imperfect activist, because I'm not always on, you know. I can't be. That would be consuming me entirely.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I want to kind of bring up, because I saw your Instagram post at one time where you were saying like how you feel everything, and I couldn't imagine like being so deeply connected with emotions in that way, where like everything that you see kind of sparks some kind of like emotional reaction from you. I am the exact opposite, where it's like I'll watch a movie and it'll be sad, and I'm like, let me try to tap into this real quick. I'll have to like try to feel that. But for you, it's a little bit different.
It's extremely different, actually. I've been reading into it. There's this term being more commonly used. It's highly sensitive person, HSP. There's a lot of like psychoeducation going around Instagram as well. So still exploring it. I haven't like adopted it just yet, but I definitely align with the symptoms of that. So I've been reading up on it, and it seems like I am. It's quite a bit of the world's population that's highly sensitive.
Yeah.
A lot of artists are highly sensitive.
I can see that, yeah.
I'm definitely in that area because I have a hard time. What's the word? I have a hard time turning off emotions, period. Like, I wear them on my sleeve. If I'm upset, you can see it in my face.
Definitely. That's another thing. Whatever you feel, like, you show it on your face. And I've noticed that about you. Like, if you're not feeling something, you're not rocking with it, you'll roll your eyes. You'll be like, oh, okay. It's the funniest thing ever. You have to catch it. But you are very, like, honest with your face all the time. Always.
It's not always a good thing, I guess. No, but I mean, yeah, no, I'm pretty expressive, and also with that came like empathy. So being like the only child here in the US and being raised among only adults, I had to take on some of those emotions, read their emotions, sometimes even support adults and what they were going through as being like kind of their only hope and their translator. And like so much of it that was put on me, I became an empath, which is also a sketchy term, because it's really just trauma that's been, put on you. That's why you're an empath. That's at least some people, right? Some theories. But watching emotions, taking in emotions, that's actually still a struggle. Like I think you're able to switch it on. I have a hard time switching it off. I can be direct, but then sometimes if you're direct with me, then I'm very sensitive about it. I'm working on it.
So you'll buck up and they'll buck back. And you're like, why are you?
Yes, in relationships, it's the funniest thing ever because I'll be like, "Oh my God, you're talking too much." Sorry, Christian, you're talking too much, or you're so annoying. However, this is just me, right?
Yeah.
I'll just be flat out honest. If he says that to me, because he's like a very passive, put together person. If he says it to me, oh my God, I cry.
You're like, why do you hate me so
Yeah,
much?
I literally ask, "Do you hate me?" I think that's a lot of women, unfortunately. Because I also, I guess I emotionally monitor the people around me and I want them to be good.
So do you feel like you take on like a lot, like you put a lot on your plate when it comes to like taking care of other people in that way and like caring about how they are and stuff like that?
I definitely see it. It came to a point where I thought of myself as a healer, and then people took advantage of that to a point where it was...
Yeah, that's a dangerous one.
It was just bad.
So I feel like there are like some people that take on like they're spiritual healers and things like that, and like people that heal you, like doctors and stuff like that. But to take on that title for yourself requires a lot from you, and it requires a lot of like also taking care of yourself in order to take care of others. So that's just a lot, I think.
Once I learned my lesson, I got rid of that, identifier because I want to be selfish. Like, I want to take care of me. Otherwise, like, I can't keep advocating for anything if I'm not okay.
Right.
And to whoever was in my proximity that was like using me to make themselves feel better, was exhausting my energy. And I'm like, well, I could be, over here organizing something for a cause.
And that's the thing that I've noticed about people too, is like if you lend a hand, sometimes like they will take advantage of that, and not even sometimes knowingly, but they can really drain you because they know that when they're around you, they feel good around you, but all that is kind of pulling away from you a little bit sometimes. And I feel like I've had similar situations, but it's more so like I know that sometimes because I'm such I'm a good ear for people, and I feel like sometimes people will talk my ear off, and then that ends up draining me, and then so I'll isolate for a little while to like recharge myself from all that I just had to deal with. But I don't necessarily I hate taking on that sometimes. Like, I don't mind sometimes, but majority of the time I'm just like, okay, like a little less from you, please. Just a little less, because you're taking a lot of my energy away, and I need mine for me.
I don't think we take that into account as much as we should. I wouldn't say that energy is a currency, but it's like it's a source, and sunlight, electricity, all that, like, it's limited. And acknowledging the others. Yeah. So if I'm going through something, I need to check in and make sure that you have the capacity to take on that.
So let's say you need to talk to someone about something that you're going through. Do you ask them, is it okay for you to share first?
It's hard in relationships because it just crosses over,
Right.
like, romantic relationships or domestic partnerships. In others, though, I'll definitely kind of feel them out. Unfortunately, I have to sense what they're going through first,
Right.
and then I'll ask, like, I'm not sure if you have the capacity for this. And if it's something bad, then I'll say this is very heavy.
Yeah.
But it can wait.
I love that though, because that's necessary. Because sometimes I feel like I'll answer the phone smiling, like just happy all the time, and like that can be read as, oh, he can take this right now.
Yes.
But it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm just happy to talk to you. I'm not necessarily 100% where I could like be there for you all the way, and I'll still do it just because I'm too afraid to say I can't handle this right now. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. But yeah, I've been there before. It's hard, but it's good that you do preface first. Was like, hey, like I got something that I want to share with you. It's a lot. Are you able to like take this on right now?
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah, it's a boundary I'm also working on. But I think one really good example that I think we applied it was I was with someone on the phone and they said they were looping me in on something like a little bit of drama, right?
We love drama. Drama's great.
When it's not about me or something, and they were like, "Hey, so this happened. I can brief you on it." And she started talking, and then I was like, "Actually,"
Yeah.
because they had to do something with work, and I was like, "Actually, not at this moment. Just not at this moment. It's gonna do me no good in taking in that information. There's nothing I can do. We were like on the road.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do? Like, am I just gonna worry about it?"
Right.
And I would take it on. So sometimes in those occasions, it's better not to know. As a curious person, you're like, you want to know everything. So that's the hard part.
Yeah. But sometimes it's better left unknown to just, preserve yourself a little bit. Because sometimes I'll do the same thing and I'll be like, yo, tell me everything. And then I'm like, I kind of wish you didn't tell me that. Because now I got to like deal with it in my brain and everything. And yeah, that's just, it can be a lot sometimes. But working on that part of myself, I'm working on all aspects of myself right now. I'm in like this weird transitional period in my life where like things for me were kind of off for a while and they got back to normal, but then I kind of like overly stimulated myself and now I'm trying to like refine balance again. So like I'm getting back my levels or whatever. So therapy helps too, which is what I want to talk to you about also. So I started going to therapy 4 years ago. My therapist.
Consistently?
Huh?
Consistently?
Yeah. Well, not consistently. Like I'll go once a month. Because that's what I can afford. Right. But my theraversary was like a month or two ago. So I had mine.
Same therapist?
Same therapist.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. It's wild. Actually, no, I lied. When I was like 20, I went to a therapist one time, but she was like a college like student or whatever, and she was like an intern, and she was also recording me for a project or something like at school. So she's like, we're going to record this session. And I was just like, I wasn't talking as much because I was just like, you're recording me. Like, I don't know what you're doing. It was just not right.
I need to put a pin on that. Yeah. Remind me of that. But yes.
Yeah. So that was like my first experience with therapy. And then I kind of like dropped out of that. And I was like, that was weird. Not doing that ever again. And then maybe like 4 years later, I tried it again and then found that guy. And he's been great for me. So tell me a little bit about like what it's done for you and where you started with that.
Okay, so a couple things on that. You can't say that you're afraid of commitment anymore because you've been with your therapist for 4 years.
You're right. I have. But once a month. Okay. Once a month.
Low commitment, long-term commitment.
It's off and on. Or an off and on relationship.
And you were talking about the intern therapist, and it's a funny story because I was with my most recent therapist for a long term, and it got a little like the dynamic was she felt more like an aunt scolding me, and I didn't feel like there was room for grace or forgiveness. It was sometimes just like a little mechanical of like, well, this is your coping mechanism. Or this is your skill that you've been trying. Like it was a little bit textbook. So we parted ways. I didn't have the guts to break up with her though. I just ghosted her.
No way.
I couldn't.
No.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. So my question is, did you feel a little bit of like a loss, like a little bit of grieving from that?
Well,
Left
the
her?
thing about it is the last couple sessions we had together, I wasn't feeling good about them.
Oh.
They were sour. So
Oh.
I was contemplating, ending that relationship about a month before I did. Because they were just like, I didn't feel great about them.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as hard because I already knew of like, this isn't making me feel as good as it did.
Yeah. So, what do you think it was? Or you think it was like the fact that you guys, like, the relationship had progressed so much where you were super comfortable with each other, and then like all the initial work was kind of, well, all the initial lessons were kind of taught already, and it was just like, okay, we're like almost like family in a way where it's just like, come on, get your shit together, you know?
Yeah. I think that's part of it is we had some things in common. She was also like first generation Mexican as well. And so she's still about 15 years older than me. And I think that communication difference, because I'm so sensitive, I need that to be like spot on. I would have to interrupt her because she talked a lot in the session.
Damn.
Which she helped me so much, like.
But she just running mouth too much.
Yeah.
She just gotta be quiet sometimes.
I talk a lot. You talk a lot. We only have an hour.
Now, when you say she was talking a lot, do you like, was she like teaching you while she was talking, or was she talking about herself? Was she like?
She would bring in some of her personal experience, which is not what a usual practice of therapists.
Yeah.
But she would talk, and then there was this thing that really ticked me off. She would repeat, like I said, and then go into some coping mechanisms. If I vented on something, she'd go into, like I said, focus on what you can control. I took it as a little condescending.
Yeah, like a little bit of a scolding, like you were saying.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm being very sensitive because I'm being extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
So she didn't necessarily approach it. Again, this is over Zoom. She didn't approach it as like, wow, let's process that. Have grace, forgiveness. Now coping mechanisms. Because she went straight to the coping mechanisms and sometimes would just be like.
She didn't even validate you.
It got to a point where she didn't.
That sucks. Yeah. Like, my therapist, he's a white guy. He's maybe like, I wouldn't even say 10 years old. I want to say, I give him like 35, maybe 34, 35. I'm 27, so whatever that difference is. But I kind of appreciate him a little bit because we're like opposites, but he validates me all the time. Like, I can give him like the craziest shit, and like it's even some shit that I did or whatever, and then he'll be just like, he'll almost not make an excuse for me sometimes.
Okay.
Because I feel like maybe it feels like that because I can be hard on myself sometimes. I'm
Yeah.
like, I shouldn't have done that, and like this and that, and then he'll be like, but sometimes it's okay, you know, and you kind of were right for what you did or whatever, for stand up for yourself or whatever. And so that's the thing that I appreciate about him the most is like, I always feel seen when I'm talking to him. So that's the one thing. And then I can't say I know a single thing about him.
Oh.
I don't think I know a single detail.
I think
about his
that's
life.
supposed to be like a inherited like boundary in the practice.
Yeah.
But there are some that use their life experience to like inspire you, and that helps me.
Yeah, because I don't think I know. What he uses a lot to help me is like books. So we're kind of into the same type of like philosophical books and stuff like that. So he'll always pull from a book that he's read or like recommend me a book, and that's where we really connect is like with the books and stuff like that. But I think I might have found out that he had a kid maybe a year ago. He said, "Oh, one of my kiddos was like," and I was like, you got kids? I didn't know that. Like those little things, but like I can't say that I know a single thing about them. And I've heard, because someone that I used to work with was going to school to be a therapist, and she was just kind of describing like therapists are supposed to be super like confidential because people are weird sometimes. They'll try to like befriend them and then like make a real relationship out of whatever that is,
Very
and it's
true.
like for their protection or whatever. So I get it, and I don't know. I never asked him any questions about him because, well, one, I thought I don't care, but I'm kind of here for me. You know what I'm saying?
I'm
Like
paying you.
I'm paying money for, I got this amount of money, I got this much time.
Yeah.
I got to get all this shit out
Yeah.
now because I won't see you for another month. So I'm just trying to really get my shit out. For you, do you care if she like brings up a little bit of her stuff?
I don't. It makes them a lot more human.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask a follow up on that. Okay, just you think it through. But how is it culturally different with him, if any?
Um, like I bring up a lot of like racial stuff with him, because I can't not be honest with him.
Right.
And he never says, "Oh, I understand." He never
Right.
says that.
Right.
He never says like, "I get it." He never because if he hit me with that one, I probably like leave. But he always says like, "I can only imagine what that feels
Right.
like," stuff like that, or like, "Oh man." And then he'll even ask me questions like, "So how is that being black?" And and give me whatever scenario. So with that, he's really good at like not making me feel like, one, my shit's not an actual problem, and two, like he actually understands anything that I'm going through, because he really doesn't. But he can empathize with me a little bit and feel for me. And yeah, I think that's the reason why I've stuck with him so long, because like he's just really good at making me feel like, oh, I'm not fucking weird for feeling that way, or I'm not fucking like out of line for what I said to that person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's the reason why I've stuck with him so long. And I've thought about switching therapists. I have, because I've heard that like maybe I could use a new therapist that'll give me like a different such and such. But the thing that I think about me is like I don't go to therapists to like solve my problems really, because when I go through things, I'm like, and what do you call it? I have to get to the center of the problem. I have to always get to the root of the problem. So some people will go through things and they'll use vices or whatever, or they'll like do certain things. As soon as I start to experience something that's like off from me, I start to analyze it and figure out what's going on. What can I do to get out of this situation, or like to help myself through the situation? What I use my therapist for is more so like someone to vent to, and someone to just be completely, totally honest with. So if I'm not feeling good one day when I walk in, I'll be honest with you, this shit is whack as fuck to me. Like, and I'll just be like that, like, yo, I'm not feeling shit today. I hate everybody. And I'll try to be respectful when I talk most of the times. But then he asked me about somebody the other day, and I was like, fuck that person. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about them right now. Like, I don't even want to talk about that right now. Like, but I just use him for like complete flow and honesty. That's really what I don't really use him to like, hey man, maybe if you don't go out tonight instead of tomorrow, like, because I can figure that shit out for myself.
Right.
He's more so like my just ear.
Yeah.
And he does give me tools. He
Yeah.
gives me a lot of tools.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really solve any of my problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm sure either it was TikTok or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But therapists aren't supposed to give you advice, I don't think.
Yeah.
They're supposed to teach you like coping skills and then really just validate you. Like if you were to say, hey, so my boyfriend is doing something sketchy, blah, 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 what do you think I should do? They don't go there.
Yeah.
At least they shouldn't. I don't know. I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
But that's great. Where else are you going to take your emotions out besides dance?
True.
You have a lot of emotions.
Yeah. I'm a big journaler. Do you journal at all?
No.
You don't journal?
I don't.
That surprises me. I thought you would have been like a super, give me a second, I got to write this shit down, like type of person,
I'm very impatient and sometimes to a fault, like neurotic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So if I miss a day, I'll beat myself up about it.
Uh-huh.
Or the fact that I have a book full of like heavy things
Mm-hmm.
makes me avoid it.
Ah,
So
I
one
can
thing
see
I've
that.
tried is doing recordings
Mm-hmm.
and then deleting them so I don't have to revisit them. Because if I revisit those feelings, somehow they feel heavier.
So you just need the outlet. You don't need to like have it like in physical form to revisit at all.
I'm extremely self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
so like I know what my shit is.
Mm.
I know what my shit is, and I don't need it written because it just feels. I don't release it. Like it feels like trapped in the book.
So how would you say you release things
I talk it through.
with yourself?
No.
Oh, I was like, that's valid. I mean, I do that sometimes.
With my partner for the most part. I have emotions. So if I were to chart every emotion, I don't know. It would be a never-ending database of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard one, navigating through it, but it's a hard one.
So you don't like go for walks at all, like, because you know some people are like, oh, this is my therapy, but it's like not actual therapy. It's just something that makes you feel good. Like, do you have any of those things?
Makeup for me is self-care and a little bit of like a meditative practice.
Okay, I can see that.
I'm like creating art
It's
type
like
of
drawing
thing.
almost, or
Yeah.
like coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I suck at it, or I feel like I suck at it. So makeup is like that. I made something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them. Reading has been that for me as well right now. Walks somewhat, dancing sometimes. That's about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to find more because I feel like the ones that I've been using for so long are kind of getting boring to me now.
Yes.
Like, I've been going on so many walks. It's just like, okay, I've seen this fucking tree a million times. I've heard this because I like to listen to the same music all the time. So I'm like, I fucking heard this song. It's not hitting like it used to,
Yeah.
or like, I'm getting impatient with reading now. And so, like, I'll start reading, and I'm like, all right, I'm bored. I'll put this down. You know,
Get to
And
the point.
I haven't read a whole book this whole year, and this is the first year where I haven't really feel like got to a book. I love going to a bookstore and picking out a book, but sitting there and reading it sucks.
Kinda does.
Like, it sucks, and like I would ride past the bookstore all the time. I'm like, I just need to stop in there and grab something. I just got to go in there and grab me a book because it's just a nice time just to pick out a book. But then you got to read that bit. You got to read it, you know. And I'm just like,
I feel like you have. Well, we all have. Me speaking, an infatuation phase with books. Of like, wow, like this environment, bookstore. Love bookstores.
yeah.
And you pick out the one, and you're like excited. You take it
I know
home.
what you mean.
You smell it. You're like, wow, it's in such good shape. And then
You put it down.
a few reads in, you're like, wow, this is a commitment.
Yeah, it is. It's a big commitment. You got to really
dead.
give it your attention all the way. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, man, I could be like on Instagram right now, or I
For
could
real.
be catching up on a TV show.
Yeah.
But I think the last book that I read might have been the Will Smith book, and I had that book for 2 years before I finished it. And when I finished it on the audio version.
That's valid.
It's not. I fuck. I cheated. I cheated. I cheated because I didn't give it the actual time. I
But-
listened to it.
But when you read, do you process every word?
No,
Exactly.
true. But that's the reason why I knew that I had to listen to the audio version because one, it's a thick ass book.
Is it him?
Yeah, and then like the audio version is him, so I felt more like, oh, this is a connection
Right.
to him or whatever. But yeah, I feel like I read it, but I didn't. Like, yeah, I read the book, but I cheated, or I kind of like took the easy way out. So that's the last audio book that I'm ever gonna do. Any other book that I read, I'm gonna actually give it my attention, but my attention span is like
Yeah.
that big. It's not really there at all.
I would love, in a perfect world, to first hear the audiobook and then read it in like physical. So that I could be like, oh, that sounds familiar and process it twice.
Yeah.
But I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Two versions of a book?
Yeah, that reminds me
audiobook.
of like learning choreo and then like relearning it like a while down the road. I'm like, oh, it's easier to learn now because
Yes.
this is fresh to me.
And the brain
That makes
requires
sense.
like 3 times for it to actually capture anything. So.
Yeah. fuck. I was on a plane like in April, and I was like, I had this book that I was gonna finish the whole, like I was gonna read half of it there, half of it back. It was like only 100 pages. Got halfway through it, forgot it on the plane. Forgot it on the fucking plane. Pissed me off, and it was a gift.
Oh.
I had to text the person like, hey, that book you got, it gave me, it was really good, but can't finish it. I forgot it on the plane. Yeah, so that one, I'm like, I hope it blesses somebody because it was a really good book.
Yeah.
But I'm never reading on the plane ever again.
That's hilarious.
That's dangerous to me, I feel like, just forgetting something on the plane. And at least it was my phone or wallet or something on my passport or whatever. But, like, still, that was a fucking... And, you know, like, I love books. And I hate, like, giving out books and stuff because, like, you never give them back. You know, it's like...
Yes.
Hey, that book I loaned you, I know I read it already, but I just want to see it on my shelf. You know, I just want to see it, like, back where it was. You know, it's just that part about giving out books and stuff. But, you know...
Oh, let me take you back to therapy real quick.
Therapy, yeah, therapy.
So I'm back in therapy after a small break. I was in between jobs.
How long was the break?
Like 8 months.
8 months, okay.
And I was at like this festival and they were giving out flyers. This is a specific Latino talk therapy practice. And so I was like, screw it. I think this is it. It was like a sign that came, right?
Yeah.
So I inquired, and so what's within my bracket financially was the intern. And so, I mean, I'm extremely appreciative, and surprisingly, she's helping because she's the opposite of my prior therapist.
Okay.
So my former therapist was so seasoned that she became like, yeah, you know, facts, things, yeah. She is so new and fresh that she's bringing a new perspective. She's learning things, you know, in real time. I call her a baby therapist because she's going to learn so much from me.
Yeah.
And I'm practicing my patience there to like recommunicate all of my shit to her.
Yeah.
And also like she's learning and I kind of want to be part of that. She's a new approach to things. We've come up with some new systems that might help me, which is not something that's been done before or in a minute. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of okay with being her guinea pig for the time being. And then I think once we overcome that level, I'll go to someone a little bit more seasoned.
Yeah. I mean, I think that every therapist has to start somewhere, but it's so scary to be that start for them because you don't know how good they actually are going to be. But it's good that she is doing what she's doing. But you said your original therapist is kind of like overly seasoned to where she kind of just like was just already ready with all the answers all the time. And that reminded me of me in a kind of a bad way because I feel like with my friends and stuff like that, like I can be super like understanding and stuff like that. But with my family, I feel like I'm very short with them because I know them so well and I know what they do and I know how they are. And so like the validating stuff doesn't really happen there. I'm just kind of like, all right, how many years has it been? Get it together, fix it, do whatever. And they tell me that I come off a little bit aggressive, a little bit arrogant, stuff like that, just because
I feel that though.
I've heard it all before, and I kind of like I suck at giving like advice or helping family.
I mean, once you know someone through and through, you're like a little eye roll. You're like, what now? Yeah. Especially if it's a constant pattern.
Yeah, that part. Yeah.
That you're like, all right, again. And it's not terrible on your end because it's your energy.
Yeah.
And you're not their therapist.
Facts. And that's the thing too. Like I think I feel like I expect me from everybody all the time, which sucks because I already have these high expectations of myself, and then I start projecting that onto other people, and I find that I connect best with high operating individuals, like people that are very aware, very like in tune with their emotions, make really reasonable decisions. For example, another person, Mimi, she's very like that as well. It's why I really appreciate her having her in my life. And so I feel like those are the type of people that like I appreciate. Now, anyone else that I feel like that doesn't meet that kind of level of like just self awareness, yeah, I kind of get impatient with, and I get a little selfish, and I'll distance myself sometimes, but then I'll come back in, and I feel it's like yes and no, because it's like, yeah, you're kind of killing me, but at the same time, I'm doing this for me in a way. I don't know if that makes sense though.
I think you might gravitate towards more introspective people, like that look within.
Yeah.
And the people that don't, and I'm the same way, is you get a little irritated because you're like, all right, you're almost there. Do the thinking, do the reflecting. The answer is within you.
Yeah.
Because they come to you for answers. And you know they're capable of getting there on their own. They might just not realize it. Yeah. When in the other side of the spectrum is introspective people, you're like, yeah, and then, I share my breakthroughs with you, and you're like, yeah, and that leads you to your breakthrough. It's like back and forth, just depth.
Yeah, love depth.
Whereas people that don't have that depth or introspection is some high level stuff where it's like, yeah, so, they'll say like, yeah, I'm depressed, and you're like, uh-huh.
There's more to that. What is it? Tell me. Yeah.
Are you actually diagnosed?
Yeah.
Are you just saying that, or what's going on?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that about you as well. Depth is just...
Thank you. So you'd say you're the same way. Where does that come from within a person?
What do you mean?
Like being so like deep or like in tune with emotions and like not always taking things as what they are. It's like there's always more to something. Like where do you think that comes from?
A lot of it is personality based, I think. My personality... Well, first of all, I have generalized anxiety disorder.
What does that mean?
Think of it as an anxiety disorder that's correlated to like something where it's like public speaking or something like that. Generalized is it could turn anything into really a worry, a concern. And most things they start edging on irrational. Because you tend to worry excessively. So that, and I was an only child for quite a bit of time, most of my life. So I had the time. My parents were very protective. They isolated me. I had the time to think, so I was forced to think. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah. So some of that nature, nurture, my personality, my environment, and then not to mention the fact that I was so different than what the rest of my family was, because all of my family is in Mexico, and there's a way of being, there's a way of growing, culture, like you get through high school, you go to like what's the word I'm looking for? Technical school, and then you get your career, and it's very similar paths. And mine was so different, and I had to figure it out on my own. That that led to a lot of looking for what the right path was. Not to mention that I'm literally interested in a million things.
Yeah. So did you feel pressure from your family growing up to be a certain thing, or to be successful, or to like go down a specific path or anything like that?
I think they were too focused on survival. And
interesting.
There wasn't... I think I set the expectations for myself. I saw them and I said, we can't go through this anymore, type thing. I don't think they vocalized it. Like, there wasn't a conversation about what do you want to be when you grow up, how are you, what college do you want to go to. I led that conversation.
You led the conversation?
I led the conversation.
Whoa. That's the first time I've ever heard that before. You were so you kind of set the bar pretty much for yourself.
Yes.
Interesting, because
And I had to
because
go
that could,
source the bar,
yeah.
and I had to go set up the bar, like it's all of it.
But you like you know that if some people were to set the bar, there would be no bar.
Hmm.
It would be like, well, I'm just gonna do whatever. I'm just gonna, that doesn't matter, So it's really cool that like you created your own like path and you kind of figured out shit on your own. And I don't know if you would consider yourself successful, but I can consider you a pretty successful person. So I think that's really interesting that you were like giving given no real source of like what you should or where to go, but you found that for yourself. And I feel like you're a rebel a little
Hmm.
bit, yeah. And that's something that I connected with because in my family I was the rebel growing up, and you wouldn't think that at all. You would not look at me and be like, "You're the one like
Right.
that's gonna be out there." But um, maybe you can relate to this. But as a kid, I was one. I was kind of smarter than I needed to be,
Hmm.
so I kind of understood things deeper than what they actually were, or deeper than what like an actual kid should understand things to be. And I was always trying to stick up for what was right and how I felt about something. So um, I was the one that was always talking back to my parents because if they said something, they said because I said so. I'm like, that's not a good enough reason, and it doesn't make sense. And this is where the flaws are in what you just said. I was that kid, and I was always getting in trouble because I was always trying to stick up for myself and my siblings. But to my parents, I was the bad kid. I was the one that was just, oh, there's something wrong with him. He's just bad. There's not a bad bone in my body. There's a
Correct.
there's a fighter in me that wants
Yes.
to stand up for
Yes.
myself and what's right and what I think is right and fairness and things like that. Um, but I don't think that I was a bad kid. I think I was just the kid that stood up for
Yeah.
myself.
Um, I had a teacher who in high school really helped my growth as an activist. And I think one of the first things he said, I could be completely wrong, was question authority.
That fucking part.
Like, and I do teach this to my kids a little bit. Why is this person in that position? Not in a way where like you're demeaning them, but like you have to think through what the value is sometimes and who
Yeah.
you're learning under, who you're, we're
Yes.
not perfect. Parents aren't always right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
as a kid, I think you and I knew that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we're like, you're acting up.
Yeah.
What?
Who's gonna police the police? That kind of situation. Like,
Yes. Yes.
you're wrong. Who's gonna tell you when you're wrong? I'll be that person. It doesn't matter if I'm a kid or not. I didn't choose to be a kid. I didn't choose to be here.
Yes.
I'll do it. I'll be the one.
Yes.
That was me. That's how
I feel
I
that.
was. That's interesting though. So I think that like I don't know. And that's the reason why um, I feel like it ties into being so understanding of other people because you kind of want what's right for everybody.
Right.
You kind of want to see. Like I remember if I was in school and I would see someone that didn't really have friends, like I would try to make an effort to not be their friend because that's a lot to just be a friend to somebody. But like, hey, I see you. What's up? I was that guy because I knew what it felt like to be like kind of alone. I always kind of want to do small gestures for people to
For sure.
make them feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's in my blood. I don't know. I'm just a great person. No, but
As so we're talking about that kind of growing up rebel thing.
yeah.
For me, unfortunately, it feeds into the stereotype of like sassy Latina. Sassy sex siren Latina, which I mean, yeah, charisma. But sometimes, especially with men, sometimes if I'm full force honest and like, then they're like, oh, and no, I'm flat out telling you that I am not interested. So that sassy Latina like rebel thing where I just say no to everything is unfortunately part of the stereotype that is aligned with me. And at this point, I'm like, screw it. I eat my
Yeah.
hot Cheetos. I
Yeah.
tell you off. I don't
Yeah.
care.
The stereotypes suck.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's not really much you can do about it. But if you so happen to even like touch what the stereotype is, it's like it's like you're bad or you're just like everybody else. It's just like yo, like relax. I hate that so much. I feel like I've been told that I look one way, but then when you get to know me, I'm the exact opposite. of what I look like.
Because the way you look should define what you are? Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it's like the assumptions and stuff like that, which really suck, and it kind of limits you a little bit.
I think that comes from ignorance and, I'm going to say it, borderline anti-blackness, where it's like you don't have proximity to sweet black men. You don't have proximity to nerdy black women or like non-athletic black men. There's a variety of people, and there's no one way.
Yeah.
So when people tell you that, which by the way, yes, because you're super tall. I'm gonna give you that.
You're tall as fuck.
So I'm naturally afraid of you because I gotta go like this, right? But and then you spoke one word, and I was like, he's a teddy bear, and I love him. But it wasn't a matter of like, oh, that's off. It's because it's, come on.
Yeah.
You are your own self, and you're not this mold that people want to put you in.
I love that. So, like, have you ever felt the effects of those stereotypes on yourself? Have you ever felt like people, maybe even white people, or like just men or anybody, like, have they ever like kind of put you in a box in any kind of way before?
That stereotype specifically of the spicy Latina, aside from the fact that I had one workplace that had like a nickname, and a fellow Latina that worked there, they added like spicy to her, and I was like, not offended, because yes, she was, but like, that's so done with.
Yeah.
That's so done with. She has reasons to be angry.
Yeah.
Like, and spicy is demeaning. What if I have actual like causes that I'm upset about? What if I'm a lawyer and I'm like extremely assertive about what I want to say, and I'm, getting to the point, like, does that make me spicy or sassy? Like, no, the quality is direct, and I'm a direct person.
So do you ever find yourself pulling back on who you are so that you don't accidentally fall into a stereotype?
I think I used to, because I ended up in a lot of white spaces. But I was sacrificing. I think I was quiet in a lot of white spaces where I'm not really quiet.
Yeah.
And that felt like shit at the end of the day. Like, I didn't say the things I wanted to say. Other than that, I don't think so. I think most of the time I am myself. If anything, I question myself afterwards, where I'm like, was that too much?
Yeah. But you're bold, though.
Oh.
You're very bold. A lot of people are afraid to speak up and speak how they feel.
I've said things where I'm like, fucking Karen. I met someone at a party one time and made a comment that was on the border of sexist, and I called him out. I was like, bro, I just met him. What am I doing? At this point, like, in this day and age, it would be a lot more acceptable. But back then, I was like, did you have to? So I do have a hard time sometimes filtering that out and adjusting who I am. Other than that, I think for the most part, I've come to terms with that fire in me, and it is what it is. It is upsetting when it's sexualized, right? Like all the spicy Latinas in movies and stuff like that. They're always sexualized. They're always in the same type of hair, clothes, and that's what people see. But there's so much more than that. Yeah. And aside from that is like, if I'm genuinely upset, I don't want you to find it hot. Like, that shit's I'm dead ass telling you that I don't like you. Yeah. Please go away. It's not a playing hard to get. Yeah. So it's just a side of the patriarchy.
Dope. 2 more questions.
Yes.
Do you ever code switch?
Not anymore. No. Well, I'd have to look back in like these spaces and see myself from afar. But I don't think I do. If I am amongst more people of color, I can be more myself. So I use. I mean, I grew up in a community where AAV was a little more common. I say y'all. I use some professional words because I've been in that realm, even in like my personal life. So it kind of just crosses over. Um, I do become more of myself around people of color, but I don't. I can't say I completely code switch. It's just more of a comfort thing.
Yeah, I think it's a comfort thing for me too because it's weird because I talk to myself a lot. I do, and sometimes, like depending on how I'm feeling or what my energy is, I'll speak differently. So sometimes when I'm talking to myself, I'll talk the way I'm talking right now. Or sometimes if I'm on the road and you cut me off, I get a little more, little aggressive. You know, I get a little, be a little twang to it. So it's hard for me to say if I code switch because I feel like I'm just like a multitude of things,
Right.
and like I've been and seen a lot of different places, a lot of different people, and like a lot of different like areas. So the way that I talk, like I grew up initially on the west side of Chicago, moved to the suburbs, all white like neighborhood, then moved to like an area that was super diverse, black, Mexican, everything, and then moved to another like all white neighborhood. My family's all black, and so like I've just kind of seen and been around everything, and so I just kind of got a little bit of everything in me already. So I don't feel comfortable saying that I code switch just because
Right.
I don't know. I just
It's not that definitive abrupt
yeah.
for
It's
you.
not like hi, how are ya? What's
Right.
up? What's up, pal? Like
Do you have a customer service voice?
I do not. I have a customer. My customer service voice would be the voice that I'm using right now.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I talk the way I'm talking right now.
Do I have a customer voice? I mean, I just have a kind of smile on my face if I'm
Yeah.
happy to serve them. If I'm not, then it's just basic me.
Yeah, because what I found is that by opening my mouth, I can make people comfortable. I found that when people look at me, I
Yes.
don't really have control over how they'll feel about me. But as soon as I speak or like talk, my energy will do it for them. So that there's no need to actually switch or portray myself a certain way.
Huh.
I can just give them comfort by being myself. And that's the reason why I don't feel really the need to code switch.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, let them get to know me first, and then
Yeah.
I'll be fine. So if I'm like in a like work situation or just in a professional situation, I just start talking,
Right.
And you can feel them, feeling okay. Well, I can talk to this guy, whatever, And I don't know if that is like, I don't know what that is. It's just something that I realized that I didn't have to do anymore.
I think when you're comfortable with yourself, you allow others to be comfortable as well.
Yeah.
So, you know how if someone in the conversation starts raising their voice and then you
Yeah.
raise your voice, so it becomes like this battle.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't that need for that probably when you speak because you're on this other side of the spectrum where if it's like a hostile work meeting and you're just chill, you take over the vibe of the room. You're like, now we're chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
calmness always wins.
it does a lot for those environments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my second question for you was, what are your thoughts on dark humor?
Fucking love dark humor so
Yes!
much.
Yes. Yes.
So I think I'm Christian said the other day that I'm the most Gen Z millennial. Because I was born in 95, so it's like Zillennial. I don't know.
Okay.
But like my humor is just, when you are bordering on mental illness, you just
You don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck. You don't give a fuck.
if I joke about like death, I'm serious to an extent, but like what are you gonna do besides like kind of laugh a little bit at yourself?
Yeah. I'm finding that there's a time and place for everything.
Oh dang.
You don't have a time and place? You don't have a time and place? You don't have one.
I guess not.
Damn. Well, there's that. But I think you know where you could make a certain joke, right? Or
Yes.
who you could make that around, right?
I tend to I use it as a coping mechanism
Yeah,
sometimes.
because like, you wouldn't make a death joke about someone that around someone that just lost someone, right?
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like you kind of know like this will be okay with this person. I wouldn't necessarily do that with this person. I think that's a lot about it because I feel like I love just like the most off the wall shit. Cause I can find like we can laugh at ourselves. I feel like that's a part of like if you can laugh at yourself, you might like dark humor.
Yeah.
That's why I love The Office because it's just like the most just off the wall shit. But it's like it's kind of funny though. It's funny. You gotta laugh at it. I just love super dark humor.
I've found myself in hospitals just being the clown, being the fucking clown. When you were in the hospital, I was like, okay, what am I gonna say? And I'm just like itching to see like what was appropriate. I don't know. I think I pulled something like occasionally a joke when Christian was in the hospital too. Cause like, what are you gonna do? What is there else to do?
Exactly. I was already on the dark humor jokes while I was in there. I was killing everybody. Like I was just making. I remember my one friend Gene. I was like, man, Gene, how do you do it? And he was like, what? I was like, I've never been this ugly before. And everybody's like, why would you say that? And I was just like, hey, man, it is what it is. I was just saying just the most random shit. It was just crazy.
However, some of it is, what is that word? What the heck? I'm forgetting. I'm missing. It's gonna come. Self-deprecating. When it becomes self-deprecating,
yeah,
then you're like, that was out of line. Especially personal comments where you're like
about yourself.
Yeah, okay. Like, could you have saved that comment about your image at the time? Because it maybe did affect how you felt, how you looked.
You mean like saying it out of insecurity?
Yes, and or like positive talk, like just. Especially about self-image, like stay positive, like don't go there.
Oh yeah, I can see what you're saying. Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
like if I'm feeling extra plump one day and I'll make a joke about something.
Oh yeah, those are kind of like
Yeah, where it's like, wait, was that really necessary? Like that when dark humor borders onto like self-deprecating comments.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, a lot of. At least in my upbringing, a lot of the dark humor was disguised. Abuse was disguised as dark humor.
Oh, God.
Like, abusive comments of like...
Oh, that's different, though.
Yes.
That's different.
Yes.
There's definitely a line where it's like, yo, this is dark because it's light and it's funny, and it's just like, but then when it's like hidden, there's a different agenda with it. That's a little different, though.
Yeah.
You can kind of feel that sometimes, too.
Yeah.
It's like... You probably could have kept that one,
We have terrible tendencies of nicknaming our kids after the shittiest things. It's always about self-image. It's either flaca, gorda, chaparro, like it's and or making it's just it's pretty.
My sister hates her family nickname. She hates it, but that's the only thing I call her because that's what I know. That's what I've called her my whole life, but it's pretty much as a baby they named her after a specific meat because she was a bigger baby, and so now everyone calls her by the name of a specific meat regularly, like it's her actual name, and she does not like it.
I'll share this. Well, obviously my name is Karen, and like I'm not a Karen, but it's funny I still use that.
Which is hilarious that you have that name.
I do shit on people and use Karen I weaponize Karen for sure. And I think it's hilarious. However, my last name is Arreola, which Arreola, do you know what an areola is?
Yeah. Yo, when I first like said your name out loud ever, because like I've read it before and like it never like clicked to me, and then I think I said it out loud and I was like, wait. I was like, that's not her name. That can't be the actual pronunciation of her name.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's what you go by in your professional life. You go
Unfortunately. By. I mean, I could change it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's your name. It is what it is. Is it not spelled the same, right?
What do you mean?
It's not spelled the same way as the other.
Oh, no, it's not. No.
Okay.
But like at this point, if I change it, like I'd have to change my Instagram handle. Like,
Yeah,
it's a whole thing.
it's you already. Don't even worry about it. I wouldn't even. All right, Karen. That was great.
Karen.
All right, Karen. That's your name. That's definitely your name. Before we go, I got some rapid fire questions for you.
Shit.
Just 3.
Oh, I'm terrible at this.
Just 3 rapid fire questions for you.
Deep breath.
All right, you ready? If you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell her?
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fucking good one. I should have.
I've encountered this question before.
It's not your fault. Love that one. If you could switch lives with anyone for a day, who would it be?
Is it Sasha Obama? One of Obama's daughters? Is that
Malia and Sasha, I think.
Yes.
Sasha and Malia.
One of them.
Either one.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good choice.
There's pressure, but not too much.
Yeah.
There's privilege, but not too much.
Yeah. Yes, you're smart. All right, the last one. What's your go-to song that puts you in your feels?
What feelings? Because I have a lot.
Anyone. Makes you feel something.
If I'm trying to hurt myself.
Yeah, I like that one.
Damn.
Yeah. What hurts you?
Nina Simone.
Nina Simone.
I
don't know.
You don't know?
Sorry.
Wow.
I know the name.
Wow.
Don't know a single song by her.
It's blues. It's civil rights era blues music.
Okay.
So
Simone.
it's very dark.
Didn't Zoe
Saldana.
Didn't she play her in a movie or something?
We don't talk about it.
Oh.
Cause they darkened her skin and they uglified her.
Oh, she's a very light skinned.
She's a very light skin.
Mixed woman.
Mixed. She's Afro-Latina.
I can see the controversy there.
I mean, Nina Simone's family was not happy about it, so that's.
Oh, so it's like they did it without the permission. Interesting.
You know the song "Strange Fruit"?
Strange Fruit?
Yes.
No.
I think you do.
Sing it.
Absolutely not, because it's extremely racial.
Oh, like racist?
No, it talks about something extremely sensitive. Well.
Okay, yeah, off the cuff. Yeah,
off air.
We'll do that.
Not that one, but she's the artist behind Strange Fruit. I think there's a couple. Fodder on My Wings is one of them from Nina
Father
Simone.
on My Wings?
Fodder on My Wings.
Fodder?
I don't know what that is, honestly. Fodder. Fodder on My Wings.
Fodder on My Wings. Yeah, I gotta look that one up.
It's just it's intense, it's deep, it's emotional. A little painful.
I love the deep shit because I've been into that like Tracy Chapman song, the fast car.
Ah, yeah.
You got a fat. That's my shit. Like I like that old random shit that you'll find sometimes. Like, I got a whole like Spotify playlist called Black and White of just like old ass songs that are just interesting to me. I got some Stevie Wonder on there. I got some Bob Dylan. Just random old songs that I find interesting.
I don't want to be the person to introduce it to Nina Simone, and I think
Too late.
People that are listening and they know Nina Simone is, they're gonna be like, "Dang, Ron."
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I was born in 1996. Don't think I caught her on the radio, unfortunately.
It's more the context and the lyrics. It's just like
a cultural thing, like know Martin Luther King, Nina
Simone. Yes. It's referencing slavery. It's I mean, she's a piano player, so just like it just goes hand in hand. Like it's deep. It's deep mourning. It's deep pain. That's like.
Damn, maybe I don't want to go there then.
Feeling good.
'Cause I'm feeling.
Yes.
Good. That's her.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only part I know. Because how does the rest go?
Birds flying high. You know.
You know how. Oh, that's the one that people like audition with that one, like on like those singing songs a lot.
Yeah, and then it was like on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like intro at some point, like some
Wait, what?
Yes, exactly. It's been taken so out of context at this point because it's a little sultry, so it's been used in inappropriate settings because it's her most popular song. That vibe.
I think Michael Bublé sang it.
Yes,
Didn't
him
he?
too.
Well, I'm sure he's feeling good now. All right. Well, thank you so much for being my first guest of season 2.
Oh my goodness.
I really had a great conversation with you. Do you have anything you want to plug? Any social media, any projects, anything?
I'm in this entrepreneurial journey, and you worked with me for
I did for
a little bit,
a month or two.
In marketing and aligning marketing, specifically social media, to causes. Currently a little booked, but if you have an organization that's like wanting to promote a cause, ideally I would like to be paid, right? Because I've done plenty of volunteering. So, if there's something out there, if you need a social media manager or any online marketing, I'm your gal. Feel free to, my Instagram is a little more personal, but that's fine. I don't care. It's Karen, ARR, 3 R's, something like that.
It could be. I'll link it though.
And then, just connect, network. I like meeting people. That's it though. Oh, and then DLD is our home studio and fantastic family. That's where we met. That's
where we connected.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, thanks, Karen. Appreciate you. And you guys can also follow me at Ron_Amos_, and all my social media links are going to be in the description as well. So you can just click those. I'm going to try to start getting like the clips and stuff back up on like TikTok and stuff like that. So be looking for that. And then next week we've got another episode. Stay tuned. All right. Bye, everyone.